Going through that whole experience, going through that whole ordeal, it just could have been handled better. Instead of looking at the client as they messed up and whatnot, how could I have improved that situation to have had a better outcome for both parties? Because it was bad for me because we couldn't finish the job, bad for them because they got an unfinished product. How could I make it better so we both win? What could I have improved on? Welcome back to another episode of the iFilmmaker podcast. My name is Ariel Martinez, and with us, like the last two episodes, Big Hairy Mike. big Hairy Mike.
We had that whole intro from the last time.
We can still put it on this.
All right, good. Apparently, I'm Big Hairy Magic Mike.
Big Hairy Magic Mike.
Yeah.
Big Magic Hairy Mike.
The only thing truth about that is my hairy Cuban arms. Do you have a brush? You need to brush these down.
Not one that's that thick.
Yeah, no. I'll probably break the brush. It's all good.
So I thought today we can finally talk about this big gaming event that we covered.
It's really big.
Really, really big gaming event that we covered almost a year ago now.
Time flies.
It was July of last year. How that project came to be, the estimate, the quote, went from originally 13,000 to 62,000.
Can we have like a lower third of that? That's a huge jump.
From 13,000 to 62,000, all mainly because of not only miscommunication, but just not having clarity.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, I take some of the blame as well. A lot of it falls on me.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, man.
You're gonna admit to a mini failure? Wow.
I take a lot of the blame because it's something that I should have made sure that was very clear. But it was a learning experience.
There was a lot of first involved in
There was
project
a lot of
on
first involved.
Everyone's end.
This is the first time that I had ever managed a crew of this size. We had about 16, 17 people on our set, all doing a bunch of different things.
And I have to tell you, we all really worked really well with
yeah.
each other, and most of us had just met each other that first day.
Yeah, but you're all people that I've worked with before.
Yeah.
So I knew that it was going to work well. We've all always worked well before. So the client approaches me and says, "Hey, we're doing this big gaming event. Want you to cover it. Can you get a couple of guys? We want to do some video stuff."
Yeah.
First of all, that's very broad, right?
Yeah.
So we want to do
Love
some
those.
video stuff. All right, cool. What do you need? And normally when this client calls me, it's for me to just do a video. But this time he goes, "Hey, can you just take care of, can you find me a couple of video guys? We just want to do a little sports center thing, a little this and that, little small stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. It's a 3-day event." And we had done a similar event the year before that. It's memorable. That's the only reference that I have to go by.
Yeah.
Started off with, can we get a couple of guys to get some video done? We want to do a sports center station. So to me, it's like, all right, sports center type station. That involves lights, that involves cameras, that involves audio. That's fine, not a problem. But we also want to do a station where it's a talk show, where we have two hosts, two people talking, both of them mic'd up, and they're going to have 1 to 2 guests every episode. Now we have another set. We want to do a podcast there. We also want to do a station where, and this was your station, we want to do a station where we're doing interviews with the gamers to get some cool, sports center type, behind the scenes on these guys.
And backstories, some celebrities that showed up.
Right. They said, man, we want to make that super dope. All right, cool. That involves lights, that involves cameras, that involves audio.
Was any of that brought up in pre-pro or when they originally brought up that $13,000 quote?
No.
So all of that was brought up. How soon?
I'm sorry. Put it this way. The Sports Center station, for example. Again, the reference that I had was the one that we did a year before. Okay. That was a little rental table that they just put a little sleeve over and two people talking with a microphone sitting on that one table. This Sports Center station,
completely
if you remember,
yeah,
this is a ginormous
top quality
LED screen in the back. They built an entire Sports Center set. That by itself must have cost like $6,000-$7,000 by itself.
It was incredible.
Just to build that set. And I'm there showing up with little camcorders that I rented.
I remember I pulled them out going,
I'm like, I can't point these little things at this huge set. It's horrible.
Mhm.
I took advantage and I'm like, well, maybe we could use these camcorders for the podcast, and we could also use a third camera for the talk show. But for the Sports Center set, which was huge, we ended up renting 3 FS7s for that.
Yeah.
But that's from my local rental houses, which are much more expensive than online.
Yeah.
When I found out that, we had to do all these sets, well, that's going to involve audio. My camera ops are not going to be able to handle all that stuff. Each set has 2 to 3 cameras, each set. I don't have that many camera ops to monitor all those cameras. Nor did I want the budget to continue to increase at the rate that it was. I was trying to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah. And we were spread thin.
Right. We were spread very thin. And so I figured, we're going to need audio guys for each one of these sets. Surely enough, we called Sound Ninjas, and Sound Ninjas are one of the local audio guys here in Miami.
They're great.
Phenomenal job. They provided all the personnel, and they had assistants, and because they knew. And that's not all the sets. We had the main competition floor.
The big one.
The big one.
Yeah, that's what was all surrounding around that.
And then we needed to have a camera set on. They had 2 announcers while the competitions are going.
You had cranes.
Yeah. And then they'd say, hey, we had jib cranes, huge, big ones. Then they said, we want audio for all of the competitors on the main floor. And it's
5-on-5, right?
It was like 5-on-5,
Yeah.
so 10 people. So that's another dedicated 2 audio person team.
I remember that wasn't brought up until I think the day before.
Right. And so little by little, they just start adding
13,000.
ding,
Ding, ding, ding,
and
ding,
adding.
ding, ding, ding.
And just to clarify, it's not like an ESPN Sports Center. It's a Sports Center like stage type of deal. It has nothing to do with ESPN. All these sets are huge sets. There's nothing small. There's a lot of meticulous thought and creative power and logistical power that goes behind producing a show like this. One of those is already a pretty big job. Now we have 5 different sets. We have 5 full sets. In addition, they wanted photography of the entire event. They wanted behind the scenes footage of the entire event. Like, you could start seeing how the crew started to add up, how the audio crew by itself started to add up. Then somewhere in the middle there, they wanted to get an interview inside of a car because Toyota was one of the sponsors. And so we had to go out, which was not in the original plan.
Yeah, that was a pop-up idea.
So we had to drive out to the Best Buy and buy a few GoPros, which ended up being Osmo action cams, leave a sound guy's bag in the car, and whatever, do the whole interview thing inside the car. But it ended up being a big job. One of the things that I tried to do once this whole thing started to unravel, this is one of the biggest jobs I had ever done, is I created a document, a Google Sheet document, to try to keep everything categorized, labeled. Like, for this job, for this show, we need all this equipment, all these personnel. For this show, we need this equipment, this personnel for this show. And I did that for every single show. Then I added, fully organized. Then I had all the personnel, the behind the scenes, the photographers, everything.
Now, did you handle that yourself, or did you have someone else do that?
I did it all myself. Now I know I have to get somebody else to do that for me. But every single one of those jobs I can do by myself.
Yeah.
So I know what goes into kind of producing it. So I had to go show by show. XLR cables, this and that, like the rentals for everything, SDI cables to run, media that we don't think that we have to rent, batteries, we have to put it on AC cables, like just so many meticulous little things.
So many details.
So in that document, I made sure I put battery rentals, SDI cables that we had to run, media, all these little things,
and
monitors.
Let me just clarify too, like, these are things that are easy to do and prep.
It's easy.
What made this difficult is that they were almost the day of. It was like the pre-light day where we were learning the expansion of everything on
That's
the spot.
right, because I asked you to come with me.
Yeah, so I came for pre-light.
For the
And
then we show up and we're like, We're seeing these big trusses going up. We're
Yeah.
like,
It's like, why didn't they say anything?
we have to cover all of this. That was overwhelming, almost
But
overwhelming.
it's phenomenal that you're able to keep up organizing and have them almost have an
Yeah,
accountability
so
to it.
right. So one of the things that I've always preached, and because I hate when this happens, is I hate being surprised with a bill.
Yeah.
I hate being surprised with a bill that I did not expect.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to do that to my clients. So in order to do that was to avoid that is to give them, I shared that document with them. This is how much every single itemized thing is costing. The rentals, everything, yada, 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 everything was included in there. And it was an ever-changing document. Every time they asked for something else, I had to add it on there.
How was their response every time a
No,
larger
they were-
number was
I mean-
added at that time?
But they were...
Did you confirm, hey, did you check out where we're at right now? Did
Well,
you do like,
Yeah, so when I first shared it with them and said, hey, listen, this is your document. This is going to be changing as you continue to add more things. Refer to this if you... And you know, I told them once. They said, all right, cool, awesome. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. They never said anything, but I always continued to remind them.
good?
Like every time they asked for something, all right, you know, they, like, for example, one thing that they asked, hey, can we get some cool lights on the table where all the gamers are playing? Austera lights, essentially. They're like cool stuff. They wanted to add like cool depth and whatnot, whatever. Like, great, we throw them in there. And I always tell them, I'm gonna add it to the document. I'm
Yeah.
gonna add it to the list, you know.
Good.
And then I always ask them, do you want to hear what we want to make sure that they hear in the live stream? They want audio signal. We're like, for 10 players that are playing, audio. So I asked my audio guy, hey, how do we make this work? And they're like, aside from putting booms on all of them, and I said that's not going to work because that doesn't sound good. And this is the last minute thing. My initial response would have been, let's just get microphones to put on the tables.
That's what we had come
Like,
up with, yeah.
well, directional that are meant for that, but they weren't prepared for that. They didn't have that
with them.
so
Yeah.
they had to leave lavaliers stripped, right, in between the players, and it worked well. But each lavalier is $50 extra for 3 days. You know, again, this is a 3-day event.
Adds up.
So it really added up. But again, I kept reminding, all right, cool, I'm gonna make sure I check that check the document. I'm adding it to the document. At the end of the day, it was a lot of money, man. We did the event, we covered it, everything was phenomenal. Everything worked smooth. I was being pulled left and right. I never picked up one camera myself. I couldn't.
Was that your first experience kind of managing a production at that level? Where you didn't have to pick up a camera and you're just kind of producing and managing?
I think so.
Cool.
I didn't touch
What was the one main thing you learned that you hadn't done before on that job?
How meticulous I am. You know, like, even though the camera operators that I trusted told me you got everything set up, great, I needed to see it myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
You're
yes, I did.
accountable to it at the end of the day.
You're right. But other things that I learned was the communication aspect of it, on how to get the right communication out of my client. And I'm going to tell you that on how I was able to include that in the next project that I did with this client.
Great.
But that, like, one thing I regretted at the end was not being more aggressive with taking that information from them. Like, really grilling them, you know? What are you expecting at the end of this thing?
Yeah.
Because I know how this works. I know that if you want a show includes video, audio, and lighting, right? So anytime you say a talk show, and it matters how many people are in that show, that matters a lot.
Yeah.
With angles, you know, the more people, the more cameras we need.
And people, first thing they write off is audio. And if you don't...
People forget
it's
audio.
one of the most important things.
People don't know the fact that there's 4 people in this one show. We need 4 lavaliers. Are we going to boom them?
And then have a boom as a backup for
Where's
someone
the
just shows
background
up.
sound? And this is a show where the main stage has music
Blasting.
and then your corner, your interviews, they emphasize that one so much. They're really banking on that, which is why I put you on there, because I trusted you the most, and you did a phenomenal job.
Appreciate it. But it was fun.
They're like, and I obviously, because I know this, again, I told them, music blasted. They're asking me, where do you want to put this? As far away from that main stage as
Opposite
possible.
corner, literally.
Opposite corners where we put it. On top of that, we had sound blankets,
Sound blankets
all over the place, and it
everywhere.
ended up coming out really nice. It's
great.
Surprisingly.
Yeah.
I think the audio guy I told him use your best microphone here, and they put their Sheps mics, that very known blue one. So we had a great event, a great 3-day event. It happened, photo, video, everything came out fantastic. Post-production now was never included in the original estimate because, again, they didn't know.
Were you not supposed to handle it, or
I was?
Do you normally handle post separately than from production? Because that's how I always handle it.
It's always separate. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, 100%.
Was it not even like talked about?
It was.
Okay.
I knew that we were gonna be editing all this stuff,
Okay.
but I can't.
But you can't fully quote for something.
It's a show.
Yeah.
Well, for most of them, it's a show.
Mm-hmm.
The other one was sort of a sports center type shows, analyzing.
Podcast.
And there's an LED behind them. There's a
then the big
podcast show.
yeah.
And then the big show, the main event. Capture it normally and then make a cool edit afterwards. We had a meeting the very following day after the event. In the 3 days, every single one of those stations must have recorded 20 plus episodes. So they had different gamers coming onto their sets, on the podcast, the talk show, the sports center.
They even had the mayor of
The mayor
of Miami,
the mayor
or-
passed by. We had Miami Dolphins football players pass by.
Some celebrities, yeah.
And stuff like that. So they wanted all those episodes as standalone episodes.
Wow.
But what happens when you have multiple cameras and audio recording separately? What is the first thing that you have to do in
Sync.
post-production? You have to sync it all up. That is 20,
Without time code. And
20 times 5 stations, right?
That's $60,000 right there.
Dude, that was a job.
Now, I don't know if you want to use this, but did you use pluralize, or how did you handle syncing all of that if you didn't have time code?
I had all the video guys clap them.
So you went off of, okay.
So I had very specific instructions to every person that was handling each station. Clap every single shot.
Awesome. So you went old school.
Yep. It's the only thing I could do.
Yeah, because with
There's
that amount.
Right. And then the client doesn't understand this because why they don't have to. Why should they? They're just making the requests. But again, being in that position, I knew I needed a way to sync this later.
Mm-hmm.
So they clapped it, and that helped for the most part, for sure.
Nice.
Told them keep everything organized. Don't do any recordings and stop if you don't have to. Like things like that. What started happening was once they said they wanted all those episodes synced, there's no possible way I could do it myself. So I hired you. I hired 3 other editors to start syncing, put it all together, make one full episode.
I wish I would have taken a picture of my timeline. It was sick.
Dude, it was crazy.
So many layers.
The syncing process by itself, the preliminary process, took forever. Not forever, but it took a while. But it was a long time to sync all that stuff. So before my client knows it, they're getting a bill, unfortunately an unexpected bill for them, because they don't understand that to start this process, you must first sync it all up first. And that's 100 plus episodes.
Hours. 100
plus episodes that needed to be synced up.
Did they have a turnaround time that they were looking for?
I guess as soon as
As
possible.
soon as possible. That's always fun.
So they're getting a few bills before they start seeing the first product. So they got the recap videos right away and stuff like that. But before starting to see, like, they're getting a huge bill. And I delivered 2, 3, 4 episodes.
Okay.
They're getting a huge bill.
And they're going,
But
what
they
are
don't
we
under,
seeing
and I'm
for
trying
it?
to explain to them 90% of this bill is only the syncing.
Yeah, they're like, what? What does that mean?
Only the syncing.
I see nothing.
Yeah, they're thinking that this big bill should come with final products.
Yeah. If you don't understand the industry, it's
So
confusing.
unfortunately, they didn't see it that way, so they kind of pulled the plug on us. They said, they had a couple of people on their staff that do editing, so they handed off the whole thing to them. By the way, the entire event, 3 days, ended up being just under 10 terabytes of footage.
Just under 10 terabytes.
Yeah.
Wow. 3 days.
The people that they handed it off to, sure enough, and I knew this was going to happen. I was actually expecting this to happen. I had given them a raw copy of it, of all the stuff. Raw,
I know where you're going.
before we even started editing. I gave them all a raw copy. And sure enough, a few days later, after they pulled the plug on us, their editor that started working on the project starts asking me, he's like,
Mm.
bro, like starts calling me, man, this is so much stuff. Did you guys?
He's about to shoot himself. No.
Yeah, he was about to shoot himself because all he has is 10 terabytes of footage.
Yeah, and he doesn't. He wasn't there, right? He wasn't there, or was he?
He was there.
Oh, okay, okay.
He was there, and he's then starts asking me, "Do you have this synced up? Like, how did you put this all together?" I'm like, I mean, that was the plan. And I told him that's what I was trying to tell you guys, that the entire first preliminary phase was only syncing. And we have over 100 episodes here in 3 days. Like, all that has to be synced up before we can start working on this.
Mm-hmm.
He was asking me if I can send him the project files that were already synced up.
That's gold right there.
That's gold.
Hours and hours.
In a person
and
in his position.
Mm.
So unfortunately, I could not give him that because that's
There's
just
nothing wrong with that.
That would have been like, I cannot let this pass. Meaning, I cannot, go through all that effort. Yes, the client was trying to pay for a final product. Everything we did has already been paid for. I cannot relinquish that because it's like this guy is just going to go in and just finish a job that we had already started.
No, and they also need to understand how this process works.
Yeah.
And so if he were to just take up from where you left off, there's no pain, there's no understanding what this really costs. And so if they come at it again, it's going to be the same issue. Can you
imagine this? I give him all the project files. He has and then now he has a better starting point, and he finishes in a better time. Mm-hmm. How do I end up looking?
Like
you know what I mean?
Yeah, like you're overcharging.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then afterwards is when they realized, this is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
This is insane.
And I would go as far to say it is having integrity by holding that off. Some people would go, oh, the nice thing that would be pass that off, but it creates these habits where the client will come back and expect that that's not an issue. It's a non-issue to sync. When they come at this again, they're gonna get hit harder. So did they react to the fact that their in-house guy or the guy they hired?
I don't know. All I know is a client called me back for another job.
Which means they got the point.
They got the point. The client.
It's a lesson. We need to also educate our clients.
Yeah. And at the same time, like now, going through that whole experience, going through that whole ordeal, not ordeal, because not the whole thing wasn't bad. It just could have been handled better. Instead of looking at the client as they messed up and whatnot, how could I have improved that situation to have had a better outcome for both parties? Because it was bad for me because we couldn't finish the job, bad for them because they got an unfinished product. How could I make it better so we both win? What could I have improved on? Maybe communicated better. Maybe they didn't understand what I was trying to tell them, the way I was trying to tell them. So things like that, I think, would have been
throughout, like, for example, that sheet that you were adding on to. At any point during all of this, was it discussed that also in post there's going to be a ton of syncing and that's going to be a huge monster, or they were so focused on the show that they weren't thinking of back end?
I kept telling, no, so that was not included in that document. What was in big bold letters in that document was, this price does not include post-production video editing. In case they didn't know what post-production meant. So
editing.
Video editing.
Yeah.
This price does not include post-production video editing. That was very clear. This is only the production, right?
So a room for improvement would have been, what would you suggest? If you had to do it all over again to avoid that whole sync issue.
A room, before that, the thing that helped me also and helped them realize what happened was that they actually hired somebody from Hollywood that is used to putting up big events like this and big shows and things like that. When my client approaches that person that he had hired, he says, "Can you believe that this we've already paid $62,000, and we've only received a few videos out of this?" And then the guy from Hollywood was like, "Of course."
Experience.
$50,000 must have been the production alone. That's exactly how it was. 49 something.
Wow.
So that guy knew.
Yeah, that guy knows.
So he knew, because he calls me afterwards.
Oh,
he calls me.
That's how you found that out.
And he was and I was telling him, like, that's what the bill came out to. He's like, of course. Did he think it was going to be less or whatever? So anyways, I'm glad that he was there.
That's good because it credits what you were
Right.
stating.
So I'm not, trying to overcharge and upsell my client. And I love my client. I've been working with this client for 8 years.
Wow.
Been working for a long time. This is the first time he hires me to fully manage this huge event. He's used to throwing big events. So anyways, it was a big learning lesson for me. Now, the question that you're asking is, what did I learn or what would I do differently? I now got hired for another big event. Similar scale, if not bigger, actually. It was a very different amount because what they requested wasn't as much. But the actual event itself was huge. But here's the thing. What I did, I went and sat in their meetings when they were planning the event. That's because good. I understand, I get it. They don't understand what I do. So my approach was, let me go see how they're planning this and ask all the questions that I need to ask. Are you going to need this? Are you going to want this video? Are you going to want the image on the LED, right? Perfect example right here. So they tell me that my camera operators, they want 2 cameras covering the on-stage stuff. This is a big concert. They want 2 cameras covering the on-stage stuff. But they need those cameras. That's what's going to be projected on the LED screens. I said, great, awesome, not a problem. I'm happy about that. Who's going to project that? Do you have the LED screen? Who's in charge of that?
All those details.
Are you expecting me to have somebody switching those cameras? Do you have the switcher? So those are the questions that they would never even think of. But I have to know where my responsibility ends, where it begins and where it ends.
Cover yourself.
So if I know that, another thing, where are they going to be located? How far is that switcher going to be? Because cables, they don't go on forever, especially SDI cables. We're not using no HDMI here because one little pull, that thing comes off.
No way.
So we have to know how long the SDI cables have to run. We sat in a meeting and they kind of didn't know if they had a switcher or not, a switcher person that's going to be, because I told them somebody has to be doing that, right?
But it's good you were there to ask those questions.
So those are the questions that I need to ask. I don't want to be finding that out the day of. So we were in a meeting and they had their in-house tech guy. He knew about this stuff, but he didn't know if it was included in the package of the LED screen, for example. So we called the guy at the meeting that was providing the LED screen. I said, call him now, put him on speaker. So we put him on speaker and I was talking to him. All right, so we're giving you the signal. Do you have the guy that's going to be switching? Yeah, we have all of that. All right, great. You have the switcher. So all I need, and again, to make it clear, all I need to do is send you the signal via SDI, 3 separate signals, because I have a jib crane coming. And you're taking that signal, and that's where my responsibility ends. Yeah, we have that afterward. Great. That's where we end. And then just like that, like, all right. So, and then just to recap with my client. So I got 2 camera ops on boxes. I have a jib crane. I have a roaming camera, but that roaming camera is not going to be projected on the LED unless you want it. In that case, I need a wireless pterodactyl type of, you know what I mean? Like, these are things that they're not going to think about.
They're not thinking about any of that, and they shouldn't have to.
And
that's why it's great you're representing production.
Exactly. So they said, no, we don't need that on screen. Perfect. That makes things easier and all that stuff. Another thing, they were talking about pay-per-view is going to come cover this. And I'm like, okay, where are they putting their cameras? No, they're going to have it in the middle. But I already have middle cameras. So again, I'm bringing up questions that they're not going to think of.
Till the day of, and then
till the day of,
and it's everything.
And then we all show up. We're like, hey, what are you doing? No, what are you doing?
Fighting for a spot.
So then I said, why are you gonna have? And then I asked my client. This is where I show my value to my client. I'm asking my client, are you paying for pay-per-view? It's like, yeah. So you're paying for pay-per-view, but you're also paying me. So you're gonna have 4 cameras pointing at the same exact thing. And I told, that's a waste. You're paying for 4 people. And I said, look, I don't mind if we can cut out my camera guys. And we'll go with the pay-per-view guys. And that is your LED feed, right? Yeah. And then they were a little confused. They were like, no, they saw my point. They were like, yeah, we're going to have 4 guys pointing at the same thing. Do you want to save money? all you need is 2. They said that the pay-per-view guys did not want to go off of my feed. And I said, not a problem. Then just take their feed. Then use it. But, don't waste money for me to bring more camera guys. To me, it makes no difference. I want him to have a successful production. The pay-per-view guys told them, according to their understanding, that they cannot take the feed from them if it's already going to the LED. I said, no, that's not true. You can split the signal.
Yeah.
They can take one signal and then we can send the other signal to the LED. So, and I told them there is a way to do that. Yeah. So it doesn't make sense to have 4 guys essentially. So ultimately, they ended up scrapping the 2 operators from pay-per-view, and pay-per-view took my feed.
Wow. Okay.
So it is what it is.
Were they FX9s or what were they?
All FX9. My cameras were FX9. The pay-per-view guys showed up with like camcorders or whatever.
Really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah. Small.
They didn't bring like ENG cameras?
No.
Oh, wow.
It was like camcorders. It wasn't like
handy cams?
It was kind of like handy cams.
Wow. Yep. Interesting. I wouldn't have thought that.
Only because I was at that meeting.
All of this came together.
Meetings, all of this stuff like rose
saved
all these
them
questions. Money. It saved them money. It saved them a headache on the day of because they had plenty to deal with. But sure enough,
even with all of that,
like 2 days before the shoot, they're calling me and they're asking, "Hey, just want to clarify, you're bringing the LED switcher and the person operating that?" And I said, "No. That is not what we had talked about."
Wow.
So that same day, I took Chris and I said, let's go on that site. I'm going to just start cracking these heads right now.
Yeah.
So I show up, and then the guy that is bringing the LED was there. The guy we spoke to and he starts asking me, "Hey, you're bringing the guy, right?" I'm like, "No, sir. Are you the person I talked to on the phone? You remember that we said that you're going to provide that?" The thing is, my client remembered that. My client remembered that, and so did his tech guy remember that. And I said, I was very specific. I could have found the guy, and I probably still could, but this is what we had talked about.
Flex that muscle.
So we had to be very clear where my responsibility ends. If I'm going to deliver a product, right, I will deliver the product, but I need to know what you need me to deliver. And that's why I had to be very clear.
Yeah.
I didn't need somebody trying to throw me under the bus to save their own butts for not, and I'm not saying, I'm not even saying that that's what he was trying to do intentionally, but that's what was happening. He was trying to make it seem like we had agreed that I was supposed to provide that. But my client remembers that we had that very specific conversation.
I'm glad that all happened in front of everybody.
100%. 100%. And so everything was cleared up. Everything was cleared up. And I said, look, let me make some phone calls. Cleared up in the sense that, whatever, we have this problem now, let's find a solution.
I got it.
Not a problem. I made a phone call. I found the guy that was quoting me $600.
Okay.
Then the LED guy said, don't worry, I found a guy that was quoting him $350. I was like, all right, that's fine. Hey, whatever it is. But you get what you pay for. You get.
Oh no! What does that mean? What happened?
Oh man, that guy ended up sucking so much.
Oh man,
it's just he had a guy that was watching soccer the whole time on the switcher. Like he was switching every time I go back. I do adjustments on the camera. I come back to see the shot. The guy's like with his phone right there.
Oh my gosh.
With his phone watching a soccer game. And
so frustrating.
And then we had an issue that we weren't getting a feed from camera. We had a feed from A cam and B cam, but not the jib. Then we started seeing, is it the cable? Is this that? So it was basically that the jib. Oh, I have another funny story about this event. We finally got the jib troubleshooted, and it was because somebody was trying to tap into the jib's feed.
Okay.
Right? And essentially we fixed it. They got a signal. But then for some reason, camera 2 went away. And he goes, they changed something in camera 2. I'm like, we didn't do anything to camera 2. Just check, because I saw that he was going in and out and in and out. I'm like, check the stuff that you were doing. Make sure that everything's back in place.
That is not an out.
And all this is in Spanish, by the way.
Nice.
And
how is your Spanish, by the way?
Está bien, un poquito.
I see. Okay, muy bien.
Muy bien. I was like, sí.
Sí, como no. Okay, muy bien. So that was fun. So having to do all of this in Spanish.
Yeah. So, the switcher guy was in Spanish.
Yeah.
And then just For grins, I went to check camera 2. Nothing was wrong in camera 2. I unplugged it, replugged it, and I went back. You getting a signal now? No. I'm like, bro, and I need to check this, what you did. And then he goes, me, I don't know. And then for a second, he stayed quiet.
That's when you...
As camera 2 comes back.
Did you make an adjustment, or did he moving things around?
He did the adjustment.
Did he put it in out?
I didn't say I told you so. He already knew.
Okay.
So everything was working just fine. And then that issue with the jib was that a big concert like this, there's a lot of sponsors. A lot of Pepsi had their own camera crew out there. Rockstar Energy Drink had their own crew. Different people had their own crew. Each celebrity that went to perform had their own crew.
Of course, yeah.
And
probably a bunch of social people there too.
But I was working, my team was working directly for the production, so we had like priority on everything. Yeah. One of the crews from Pepsi, one of the guys said, hey, first of all, they thought they were going to mount their camera on the jib that I brought out there.
What?
I don't know why. I want to chalk it up to miscommunication.
Okay.
They thought they were going to be mounting their red on there. And we're like, no. This is for our camera. This is not your jib.
Man, they just confiscated.
And then they're like, hey, they said we need to connect to your feed. They didn't even ask. They said we need to connect to your feed. And I said, we got to see. I need to ask for permission on that one, because first of all, the production, the whole thing, they're hiring us to do this thing. I don't know who the heck they are. I don't know who they're working for. And again, we have priority. This is, I rented this. This is my jib. You're not gonna try to piggyback off the stuff that I'm bringing out here. So, but the thing, what bothered me the most is the operator, the jib op that I had out there. We had out there. They kept going to him instead of me. And then poor guy, he's kind of stuck. He's like, they're coming to him and say, hey, we need to connect to this. And then every time I show up, it's like, I come and I see a Teradek device on the jib. I'm like, what is this? What? That's the reason why we weren't having a good signal first, because they're connected to the Teradek.
Okay. And
the Teradek is not outputting to the monitor, and it can't go to the switcher.
Just dropping signals and all the way.
And then I felt bad for the jib operator, but he told me 3 times, but they won't get their signal. And at the very end, I'm like, I could give a flip what signal they're not getting.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help them out, but at the same time, we're priority. I don't care if they get no signal. As a matter of fact, I took it off.
You took it off? Yeah.
I took it off. Like, they're not getting a signal.
Yeah. That's it.
That's not, I don't work for them. They're not hiring me. So anyways, what ended up happening, they ended up coming here. Like, we worked it out where I just gave them footage.
Okay.
But it's fine because my client put me in contact with them after the fact.
Okay.
And that's okay. But I don't work for them. To answer your question, what I learned is how to be very clear about my responsibilities.
Yeah.
Knowing what to expect. Sit down if you need to. Go sit in an interview when they're planning this stuff, and make sure that you're fully aware of what's, especially an event this big. You don't take that much money from a client and not know 100%. Even if your client is not very good at presenting it to you, I took the initiative to go and sit down, and they didn't pay me extra for that. I did that. I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was getting into, even if they didn't know how to tell me. That's why this event was so smooth, even with all that craziness.
Yeah, and some people will require payment for that time, but if you, as the owner of your production company,
100%,
it serves you good to be able to make time to be there for that.
There's a lot of value. You know what people. That's one thing that freelancers like to do, is to charge for every single minute that they spend with their client, and that's might be okay to a certain extent. We're talking about a client
There's places for that. Yeah.
Right. We're talking about a client that brings me a lot of work, and not only that, it's big work. You know what I mean? There's so much potential for growth. So I see value. It's like a company spending extra dollars to make sure that their team is fully supreme in customer service.
Trainings.
They're not making money off of that, but they see the value in maintaining customers.
It's retention.
It's retention. So you want to retain your really good customers, your
So
really
you
good
go
clients.
out of the way sometimes for them.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to stop thinking as a freelancer, start thinking as a business person. Again, serve your clients.
It's like having vision for the overall goal as
Right.
opposed to nickel and diming. I need to get paid for absolutely every single moment. But you got to think long term.
Yeah. And so that was the initiative that I took. That's the only way I knew that.
Well, what if you didn't? What if you hadn't taken that initiative? Can you imagine the amount of miscommunication that would have occurred?
It would have been another one of these gaming
Yeah.
scenarios where the budget goes from this to this, and now they're left with another bad taste in their mouth.
So that
You know what I
one
mean?
meeting that you threw yourself into possibly saved this entire shoot. Just being present.
And they were fully okay with that. I even said, hey, can I go sit down in your meetings to see what you guys are planning? And I was with them. I was there for like 6-7 hours with them, just sitting there. Because they had meeting after meeting after meeting where the RV vendor came in, then the drinks vendor came in, then the seating and barricades vendor came in. Like, oh, a ton
you
of
sat
vendors.
through all of that?
I sat through all of that. Everything. Because I needed to go. And most of that wasn't even pertaining to me.
How many cafecitos?
A couple. They ordered lunch for us and we all ate. But it was just like I needed to be there to see what they were planning. Also, I've been working with this guy for years. Super great guy. You met him. So it's something that I felt needed to be done. And again, I'm happy to do it for the next one.
Yeah.
I want to show them and let them know that I'm invested in this as well. I want to provide you guys with the best possible product. I want to save you money. I'm not interested in making more money off of you guys. I want to make sure that you guys are optimizing your expenditures and your expenses on all these events.
Imagine them knowing you just saved them a lot of money. They're going to keep coming back to you because they trust you. That's invaluable.
Yeah. So I think
Good
that
stuff.
that was a really good event. Too bad you couldn't be
I'll
part
make
of it.
sure I don't go on vacation next time you have a big, massive. You waited. You told all these different, all these different artists to do it when I was on vacation. You jerk.
Yeah. But
man, yeah, would have been nice. But I was glad to be part of the flash mob that was connected to it.
the flash mob, that was kind of
The pop-up concert. Cool. Yeah, pretty cool. But yeah, man, so many lessons in this one story. And I appreciate you sharing with me because it's stuff that I can take on to my next big project and even the smaller projects. Be there for the prep and try to avoid everything through any unforeseens through communication. That's what I got out of it.
But yeah, one thing I try to do these days is just to make sure I have a physical phone call with them. I want to talk everything out. Ask questions. Ask questions of make sure you know their expectations. But anyways, let's wrap up this one. It was a great episode. I'm glad I got to share that. And thank you guys for listening and watching. Make sure you're following us over at ifilmmakerpodcast.com and also on social media at ifilmmakerpodcast. You can find links to both of our social medias, mine and Mike's, down below. Putting it on the show notes all over the place. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.